Hey, and this is Sydney, and I am here to talk us through the time of November 5th through the 11th, 2025. It's been a wild week. I am recording this on November 4th around 8:52 a.m. And woke up with the news of George Bush's vice president, Dick Cheney, passing away. So, it makes for a good day. Anyways, I wish that people actually suffered the consequences of their actions in real time, but you know what? We don't know people's lives. So, all that to say is, I think it is quite interesting and a little bit fitting that it is also happening on voting day. And like astrologer Sam Reynolds posted this morning, seems like an omen. And, maybe it is. Right. So we are going through wild astrology, as we know. I'm going to try to orient us as much into the sky as humanly possible. Things that we should know that are happening this week, for sure, just to wrap our cute noggins around it, is Mercury is going to be retrograde by the end of this week. So by the end of the days that I am recalling for all of you, we're going to be in Mercury retrograde. So I'll talk about it a little bit more as we get there, but Mercury retrogrades are definitely a time to revisit certain, strategies and plans that we've made, certainly things that we've said. There is definitely there's like a recall function to it, I think. And certainly there can be issues with communication and technology and cars and travel, especially short distance travel. It happening in the sign of Sagittarius could be more maybe some long distance travel sort of stuff as well. All that to say is I think this retrograde period is going to be especially spicy, very, very wild. We're going to get a revisit of the Mercury-Mars conjunction that just happened this last week. So there's a lot going on there. So that's one thing. Later on in this week as well, we're going to have Jupiter going retrograde. Jupiter is going to go retrograde at the end of this broadcast. So it's going to be on the 11th. So I'm just looking at all my notes. And it's going to happen around the 25th degree of Cancer. It's going to be retrograde until March of 2026, March 10th to be specific. It is going to retrograde from the 25th degree of Cancer all the way to the 15th degree of Cancer. So we're going to want to look at that area of our chart and also the planets that it's been aspecting and kind of ask ourselves, like, how have we been growing in ways that maybe are unattainable or not sustainable? Maybe we need to do some revisit here. We need to also remember that Jupiter is still benefic. And if we have planets at this degree range of, 25 all the way down to 15, there's like a revisit of a situation, an opportunity, or something that is going to be coming through two more times, right? It's going to come back retrograde and then it's going to go forward again. So we might want to ask ourselves, what kind of came up for us at this time that needs a little bit more work, maybe a little bit more expansion, maybe a little bit more goal setting, certainly, or maybe we need to inject a little bit more wisdom into the decisions we're making in a certain part of our chart. That's kind of one of the bigger things of the week in terms of ingresses. We will have the moon going from Taurus all the way into Leo. And we do have a full moon, which we will talk about at the top of this as well. So without further ado, if you happen to be a longtime listener, please don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm always trying to meet my people, new clients, comrades, all of that stuff. Okay, so let me go into, I'm going to move that forward. We're going to be using Regiomontanus charts because that's just what I've been using. I don't really use whole sign a lot. except for when I'm doing perfection work, but we're not doing that today. So I'm not doing that. Today, especially today, we need to know that we are having a full moon. That is going to happen at 5:19 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and it is a full moon in Taurus. Taurus is a happy, exalted moon. We do still have it ruled by a domicile, Venus in Libra. There is this kind of pressure being placed on that Venus in Libra, though, because she's at the apex of a yod. And I think that that's kind of important because there's something around like our values or social graces, how we're interacting with others, how we're being expected to react and interact and be diplomatic towards others. I think that there's something about diplomacy that's kind of coming up here. And certainly when we have a full moon in Taurus, that means that the sun is perfectly opposite to it in Scorpio. Here's the full moon. There's the moon in Taurus. There's the sun in Scorpio. This is the survival axis. This is the axis of security. This is the axis of my money and other people's money. This can be around resources and values, our values versus their values. This can certainly become things about safety, security, sensuality. Some people will argue that Scorpio is about sexuality, right? There's something here definitely about the things that make us feel whole and make us feel okay. And we do know that like right now in the world, we're dealing with a lot of stuff around food security, and that sort of thing because of, I live in America, so we're dealing with like SNAP benefits being cut off from millions of Americans who need that. And so I think that there could be something here where we get maybe the first taste or a understanding of what that truly means, right? The full moon is a culmination. It is an awareness point. It is when things come to light. The moon is reflecting this Scorpio sun. So there's not a lot of aspects to the full moon which is interesting. It could be potentially like a milder full moon, all things considered. We do have Jupiter is lightly in a trine. It's a sign-based trine to the sun and sextile to the moon, hopefully adding some benevolence, some ease, some calm here as well. This also, because the full moon is then thus feeding into this Jupiter in Cancer, which is about to go retrograde. I'm wondering if it will kind of bring up something that is also having to do with all of the stuff that's going on with immigration, some sort of realization around like how all of these things are working together. All these structures are interplaying with each other. That's kind of the big players of the day. I want to make sure that I'm not missing there's really no aspects for the full moon. So, if you're feeling tired, you're feeling a little bit exhausted, you're feeling a little bit put to the fire in terms of, having to kind of push through this level of tiredness, that certainly exists there too. And again, the yod that has Venus at the apex isn't really like perfecting, and it's not a perfect yod either because it does involve the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, really Neptune. So that quincunx between Venus and Neptune won't click into place until tomorrow, I believe. And then the quincunx that happens between Uranus and Venus won't perfect until Venus kind of loses some of her quote unquote dignity, her resources to be Venus, when she goes into Scorpio. So this pressure upon Venus to be Venusian, perhaps to show up and save face and to play nice, is going to undergo some changes. And her journey is very interesting, kind of starting now until really as she goes through Scorpio, but certainly, she has this pressure placed upon her at this very end part of Libra. So she is going to be in Mars's terms happening here. So there is like some sort of like, we need to nip this in the bud. We need to do something. She did have her square from Jupiter, which was kind of this, I'm going to overdo it and take some action. I'm going to overdo it. And then she immediately has this pressure in this yachts. She's going to change. She's going to go into the underworld, Scorpio, and confront Pluto, the big boss under there, and kind of undergo some really radical, probably fundamental changes to her values, right? And then she's like, I got to go deep. I got to go in. So her journey is going to be very interesting, I think, for us over the next period of time. Okay, so later on in the day, we have Moon sextile Jupiter. This could be just like a pleasant little bit of like soothing after the culminations of the day. Just because there aren't a lot of aspects to the day doesn't mean that things aren't coming up or we're becoming aware of these things in our consciousness. So I think that, full moons are just a good day to, if you can, activate some rest in your life. That Taurus moon wants it. Make some soup. Cool. Thursday, November 6th is Jupiter's day. And, Jupiter days are good days for travel, engaging in higher knowledge, wisdom, also trying to find a sense of ease or jovialism, right? Jupiter is about expanding in hopefully joy when it's in a good place. And luckily for us, we have Jupiter still in Cancer, still not retrograde. It's very, very slow right now. So I think that there's, it could be as it gets slower and slower and it goes to station retrograde that we're going to get more Jupiterian news potentially coming up for us, which could be things around the legal system, around immigration. Certainly, I think that's, the homeland security, quote unquote, kind of stuff coming up at this time. Cool. So let's go into the aspects. Today, I think, is really a rock and roll day. We're going to get the moon making lots of aspects. So I really do think and hope that this is a way for us to kind of move forward into the end of the week, it being Thursday, and just trying to maybe use whatever realizations or awarenesses that have come up from the full moon the day before, and using that to kind of push forward to clean up some of that, to get some work done. Early in the morning, moon sextile Saturn, hopefully will just kind of bring a sense of, I think it's like a duty and resoluteness, like a way of kind of making us feel a little bit like there's a resolve here. There's, okay, I'm going to get these things done. And I think it could feel pretty pleasant. It's a middle night, so let's not worry about it too much. 6:41 a.m., moon quincunx Venus. And so this is an adjusting aspect. We need to make some sort of an emotional adjustment around the things that we value. And certainly Venus is at the tip of a yod too, right? So she's right here, 29 degrees. She's anoretic. That means that she's critical. There's something very important that this Venus is trying to finish up. And she's in Mars's terms. So she's like, let's, cut it off. Let's end it. Let's fix it. Let's take some sort of action here. She's in a cardinal sign. She's in the sign of justice. She's in the sign of balance. She's in the sign of fairness. She's in the sign of relating and getting along, diplomacy, certainly. So there could be some sort of pressure placed upon her here. And when the moon comes and quincunxes, it kind of activates this yod again. So I just think that there could be also a fair amount of news around Venusian things, women, right? Resources, money. We know that there's a lot of things going on with money right now. And certainly with that Saturn-Neptune situation happening, that means it kind of pulls in Saturn into this yod here, right here, with Venus We do know that a lot of banks are making some interesting adjustments with asking for money from the reserves right now. So there's just a lot of pressure on Venus, and she's doing the best she can, but she's about to lose some dignity, and she's going to be like, man, I don't have everything that I need right now. I'm not feeling as powerful because I've really been going through it. We're going to get Mars sextile Pluto, and that's going to happen at 7:10 a.m. So here's Mars here, freedom, loving Sagittarius Mars, right? And this can be really bold and taking rash sort of action. It's in a fire sign, super passionate, and it's going to come and be in a sextile with Pluto. Pluto is in the sign of the people, power to the people. There could be something here, whenever we see Mars Pluto aspects, there's always a sort of reminder to use our energy well, in the ways that we're taking action, the ways that we're doing things. It is in fire and air, so it doesn't really have anything to ground it. And do we have any earth in the sky right now? No, we do not, because by the time we hit up 7:20 a.m., we have the moon in Gemini. So, Mars, Pluto can really rile you up, can make you feel very, very passionate, wanting to take some sort of, deeper action. There could be some sort of systemic action that people are taking in order to fight for freedom. It's impassioned, certainly. We do know that this is going to have a little meeting soon. Mercury had its sextile with Pluto a few days back. Mars is having it now, and then they're going to also meet up. So there's also a little bit of okay, what did you learn? What did you hear? Mercury. And then what did you do? And then let's fight about it later. Let's see. Okay, so then the moon is going to go into squirrely cute Gemini. Is going to have all sorts of information that it wants to titter on about or wants to collect as it goes through the sign of Gemini. And one of the first things it does as it goes into Gemini is it meets up with Uranus and it says, hey, let's get some new ideas going. Let's change something. Let's shake things up. And so there could be a bit of excitement happening as well with that. And it's not spicy so much as it is kind of exciting, feeling a little bit of electric, and definitely new ideas could be kind of rushing in at this time in our personal lives. Venus quincunx Neptune is going to perfect at 8:36 a.m. So, Venus, again, I've talked about this plenty in this podcast already, but Venus needs to make some sort of adjustment, and it's actually kind of an eliminating adjustment to whatever the illusion, the dream, the vision, the ideal was. The interesting thing about this quincunx in particular is that, Neptune is in the sign that Venus exalts in. And so I think that there's something that Venus being in Mars's terms, she's okay, I know I need to make this shift. This is the last thing I need to do. I need to adjust my vision here so that I can go into the underworld and I can make the changes I need to make and come out on the other side. She's just kind of maybe gearing up for battle in some sort of way. We're going to get the moon trine Pluto at 9:41 a.m. Here is the moon. Here's cute Pluto. Not so cute, but so this gives us the opportunity to go deep. We could be feeling pretty intensely, and also kind of because this has to do with, it's in the sign of Gemini, it really has to do with information. Maybe it's we're emotionally processing information on a deeper level than we're used to, but we're able to do it, right? And we're able to do it in a way that doesn't necessarily involve us feeling very, overwhelmed by it. It's just we're able to get into the meat of the matter. We're able to get to the bottom of it and really hopefully kind of transmute some of that energy out. It's I don't know, personally I love the trines to Pluto because Pluto just gives a depth and an intensity to everything. Moon opposite Mars. Now this is going to be at 9:49 a.m. So this is kind of there's some stuff going on in this mid-morning situation that could could have us feeling a little bit spicy by the time we hit the Moon-Mars opposition. This is some sort of, reaction, interaction that causes us to be quite angry. And it could be around, information and beliefs, right brain, left brain thinking. This could be the Moon in Gemini kind of like doesn't want to take things really seriously, honestly. And, Mars in Sag really wants the truth. It has a desire to search for the truth and meaning. And so, it could be that with Moon coming up too, there's like a realization or an awareness here that we haven't gotten to the bottom of the matter yet, and we need to take some sort of action in that way. This is a mutable opposition, so with mutable aspects, we just kind of need to know that these things can change as quickly as the wind can change. It's be very kind of malleable and flexible. Try not to let whatever anger or spiciness that arrives at this time to get the best of you. We're going to get the Sun sesqui-square Neptune at around 12:30 p.m. This could just feel a bit confusing, and maybe that anger kind of overwhelmed you, and now there's like a kind of confusion around like the goal, how we're trying to really move forward with the dream. Like, was the dream even real to begin with? And we have Neptune at also critical 29 degrees. So today there's some stuff going on in the sky where we have 3 planets at critical degrees. We have Venus at a critical degree of 29. We have Neptune at a critical degree of 29. And we have Uranus at a critical degree of 0. This is the beginning, 0. These are the end. The end. So beginnings and ends are all about it, and having to make some sort of adjustment, having to make some sort of feeling confused about something ending here, perhaps. And it's in water signs, so it has to be like a feeling. This is maybe a feeling of maybe like a well of grief, or like just being kind of hit with that well of water of sadness. I don't necessarily think it feels super good, so be careful around the afternoon. Venus goes into Scorpio. It's going to be at 2:39 p.m. So Venus enters the sign of her detriment. And something about detriment planets that I keep trying to like really synthesize is that even though they don't have the traditional resources in which to go about the ways that they want to act in a Venusian way, right? And caring, loving, bonding, that sort of thing. It needs to do it in its own way, a different way, because it has different resources, right? So Venus in Scorpio becomes very, very, very intense and very, very passionate, and also very emotional. It's a water sign. Water is about emotions. There is a depth to a Venus in Scorpio that is kind of beyond. If you've ever met a person with Venus in Scorpio and they catch feelings for you, they want to crawl inside of your skin. They want to bathe in all of your juices and know and be everything that you are, kind of thing. They don't want to let you go. It's very intense, super passionate. And I love that for them. It can feel really hard for people that are like maybe have air signs, but I feel that for them. And they will, whenever you have a Venus in Scorpio, you also need to look at where Mars is in your chart and what Mars sign is in. Now, for Venus being in Scorpio, its ruler is going to be this Mars in Sag. So there's going to be something I think that has to really do with like, I want to get so deep into it so I know the ultimate truth of like the God in you, or like what you really, really believe, sort of thing. It has to do like with that kind of Jupiterian, Sagittarian sort of moments here. We don't have any planets that will be domicile. We only have this exaltation of Jupiter in Cancer. So now we don't have like a final boss. We have everything kind of moving through and talking to other planets, which I think can kind of feel like chatter in the sky. Venus is then going to, as soon as it goes into Scorpio, quincunx Uranus is going to happen at 3:30 p.m. and we have Venus in a water sign and Uranus in an air sign. And so there's really something discordant about this and having to make some sort of sudden adjustment to our values that we just got here, right? And this can feel like some sort of sudden information or shock kind of comes through around how we are performing this Venus thing, how we're performing our love and care for others and nurturing that needs to shift. It has to make some sort of shift. And it also feels really anxious and it feels critical and it feels like, I'm trying to perform this service, but you're telling me I have to change, sort of thing. It's this Virgo aspect. It could be kind of some sort of aspect of shame that kind of comes along with it. Maybe during that Venus and Libra situation that we were all going through, right? When it was going through that sign, we were just kind of going along with the flow. But now, especially when it comes to like money or resources, and now that's changed and we don't have those things anymore. And we're feeling kind of ashamed about maybe how we behaved before. We have to make some adjustments here. We're going to have Moon opposite Mercury at 5:19 p.m. It's going to be at around 6 degrees Gemini and Sag. This is, I think, going to kind of maybe cue off this like little emotional awareness around what the Mercury retrograde is going to be about. Because we're at that degree, that 6 degrees Sag is where Mercury is going to station to go retrograde. So watch your mouth at this point, at this place here. Watch your mouth when we have these aspects here of the moon hitting Mars by opposition and then Mercury. It's just let's be a little cautious about that. It's kind of the last aspect of the day. And so there could also just be like, more than anything, some sort of awareness around what the next, 3 weeks of Mercury retrograde are going to be up for us. And maybe how that's going to feel as it starts its journey. All right, so that is the 6th. Now we are on Friday, November 7th. That is Venus's day. Venus is at the beginning of her journey in Scorpio, and today in particular is a big day for her, if only because she is going to have her fight with Pluto, and that's going to be happening later on the day. Before we get there, though, and Venus is a good day for like beauty and pleasure and harmonizing and those sorts of Venusian things. And with Venus and Scorpio, I think it's like maybe read some really intense love poetry or listen to a playlist that is like makes you feel intense. Put on some goth rock. That's what Venus and Scorpio feels like to me. In any case, 7:46 a.m., we have the moon going to quincunx the sun. It's going to happen at 15 Gemini, 15 Scorpio, and the quincunx is an anxiety aspect. And so we could just be feeling a little bit unsettled in the morning. And I do think that today, in general, feels a bit unsettling. One of the other big things about this day is that Uranus is incredibly still, about to station retrograde later on today. So as it goes from an air sign into an earth sign, we can maybe see or sense that there is something that is going to shift Uranus is the planet of liberation and shock and also trauma. And we had a lot of stuff around resources with Uranus in Taurus. And I think we're going to kind of finish some of that up with the Uranus in Taurus retrograde. Like we have some final business to go over, and we do know that we have some stuff going on with SNAP benefits and how people are being able to eat and survive. Taurus is a sign of survival. It needs to feel resourced because otherwise it does not feel safe. That's why Tauruses like to kind of have their things, right? They like to own things. They like to have things. They want to engage in pleasure, So all that to say is we could also be seeing some seismic activity as Uranus, literally the planet of earthquakes, goes into an earth sign. Could be seeing something there as well. We're going to get the moon sesqui-square Venus and Pluto. Those aspects really don't feel good. They feel like there's some issues here, there's issues in my relationship, or how I'm feeling about my relationship, or what I'm feeling about money, or how I'm doing that. And we already know that that's the case. We live in America. And the sesqui-square to Pluto definitely feels very, very critical. And this is like so psychological as well, because that moon is in Gemini and Pluto's in Aquarius. These are air signs. Moon sesqui-square Pluto is, especially in the air signs, feels psychologically critical. There's something here. And it also takes, this anxiety and I need to do this thing, but I don't want to do it, around maybe finances or how I'm operating in relationships, and taking it to Pluto. It feels critical. Uranus then enters Taurus, and it's going to, when it retrogrades, when it moonwalks backwards into Taurus, it immediately hits another critical degree of the 29. So, 29 is the ending degree of any given sign. So it's wanting to work with the ending of Taurus. It's going to be in Mars's bound. So there could be, I think, sudden kind of fissures and cracks that have to do with Taurian things, which often has to do with money, often has to do with food, often has to do with resources, often has to do with our sense of comfort or safety. So that's fun. Love that for us. Venus square Pluto is going to happen at 7:43 p.m. and this just such a passionate square. Pluto's like, I need you to change, and Venus is like, I'm in a fixed sign. Are you fucking kidding me? I'm not giving this up. I'm not ungrasping the things that I have, that we have together. I'm not letting it go from my cold, dead hands, right? And Pluto's like, you have to. In order for us all to be okay, you need to give something up here, right? It also just brings such a passion, depth, and intensity, right? All of those Plutonian words. And this is a third quarter square. This is a crisis of consciousness. Pluto wants Venus to give something up. Venus doesn't want to. This is a fixed square, but we're still having to take some sort of action. It could feel very sudden because of that fixity. There's always a break kind of thing that happens here. Moon sextile Chiron at 9:14 p.m. This is fire and air. I think that there is an opportunity to maybe do some psychological healing around our identity wounds, to engage in offering some probably surface level empathy, not to hate on, Gemini placements, but it can be kind of surface. There is still spicy here though, because of all of those aspects earlier in the day. So engaging with some sort of healing or understanding more about the healing journey that we need to go on. Moon squares Saturn at 11:48 p.m. This is a mutable square. It's asking us to kind of roll with the punches here. And moon square Saturn often feels like a depressing hit, a reality check that feels really limiting and really not great, right? And Saturn is in Pisces, which is really trying to kind of ask us to master and get a handle on Piscean things, like things about faith and or boundaries. And, Moon in Gemini just wants to go everywhere. And I think Saturn is just like, here's the boundary, here's the limit. Here's the limit to the dream, and the moon's like, I wanted to like party and have fun. So if you're kind of feeling like today feels a little bit like a Debbie Downer, no, it's because at the end of the day, we do not get the cherry on the cupcake. In fact, the whole cupcake has been kind of squashed to the ground, especially on this day, which is November 7th. Yeah. So I don't particularly like this day, and I hope that people just kind of hang on to the seat of their pants, because I do think that Uranus changing signs is going to bring some news here. Some news is going to come up and be coming up over the next couple of days, because Uranus is going to be very, very, very slow, not really even moving at all. Okay, let's move forward to November 8th, which is Saturday. Is it going to be much better of a day? And the reason why I say that is because at 7:06 a.m. we do get the moon leaving Gemini and entering Cancer. This is a place where the moon is at home and knows how to do the moon things. And I do think that emotionally we get a little bit more withdrawn, a little bit more quiet. We do that lunar thing, which is like this like self-reflection. It is in a sign that is concerned with its security, right? It's concerned with home, doing home things, taking care of our family, maybe needing to engage in things that make us feel safe at home, moon in Cancer. And we are still with a lot of water in the sky. We have the moon, we have Jupiter, we have Venus, we have the sun, we have Saturn, Neptune, and that cute little node, North Node in Pisces. And so we still have the sign-based grand water trine. And then we also still have this trine that's happening between the Saturn, Neptune, and Jupiter, kind of holding it down. But with so much water in the sky and the moon joining it, I really do think that we're feeling sensitive, very, very sensitive. And with Mercury and Mars sitting here in Sagittarius, we might have a lot to say about it somehow. We might want to really speak out about those things. So just kind of keep that in mind. All right, we're going to get the moon square Neptune. This can just feel like overwhelming confusion or, a little bit of like grief. And that's going to happen right before the ingress of the moon into Cancer. So there's almost something like feeling overwhelmed. And then all of a sudden you're feeling the feelings with the moon entering Cancer. The moon's going to enter Cancer at 7:06 a.m. Moon conjunct Pluto. This is anxiety. This is just, bar none, anxiety, needing to make some sort of emotional adjustment to how we're feeling about something, maybe how we're feeling about in relation to power and control dynamics. Certainly, Pluto wants us to eliminate something, wants us to give something up when we come in and we have an aspect to Pluto, right? Pluto's like, I need you to go deep, and then I need you to eliminate it. I want to get it out. And so when it comes to the moon coming up by a quincunx, it goes suddenly change, suddenly shift the habit, change the feeling. We're going to get the moon sesqui square the sun right after that, 9:39 a.m. So really this mid-morning, basura, trash, don't love it. We are going to get a nice kind of hopefully healing-ish aspect. I think it feels passionate. I think it feels emotional. 10:51 a.m. we get the moon trine Venus in water signs. And there's mixed reception here. The moon does not like that Venus is in Scorpio. The moon is like, yo, that sign, that like Scorpio doesn't feel good for me. That is too intense, right? But Venus does like the moon in Cancer. It's like, oh, I like that sign. That feels nice. So to me, it feels like even though there's this flowing of emotions, it's like, like, kind of making this like, it doesn't really quite all, it's not as happy as it could be because of the mixed reception of it all. Moon quincunx Mars. Be careful of popping off. Just really be careful of emotionally popping off in some sort of way where you feel like, your self-righteousness can have a way to flare its cute little head. Mars in Sag, like, it's impassioned about what it feels its truths are, right? And when we have the moon in Cancer, it's like, I feel my feelings and I'm sensitive. And so this combination can really cause like some sort of sudden flare up that I don't think is super great. And we also are going to get that quincunx to Mercury as the last aspect to today at 6:17 p.m. And so again, let's be really measured about how we choose to communicate our truths, because we are feeling things really, really deeply. We have so much fire in the sky. The only Earth that we have in the sky right now is Uranus in Taurus retrograde, and that South Node in Virgo. So, it's really trying to shake up our foundations, Uranus and Taurus, and we're just like feeling really impassioned and we're wanting to, take some sort of action here, but we really need to remember to like slow down. Remembering that Mars is in a fast sign right now. It really wants to just shoot off into the sunset. So that is Saturday the 8th. Sunday, November 9th, 11:01 a.m. first aspect, Mercury stations a retrograde. So now it's time to go back over things. It's going to happen at 6 degrees, 51 seconds, 51 minutes of Sagittarius. So if you have any planets, I do, so I was like paying attention. If you have any planets at the, I would say probably like 4 to 8 mutable range, you're going to want to pay very close attention to how this is kind of, what stories are kind of coming up. And we all want to know where Sagittarius is in our charts, right? So by whole sign, it's in my 4th house. And so I have a feeling, especially since I'm going to be near folks that I haven't seen in many years, and also including my family, and be in Seattle, it's very, very possible that I'm going to be having conversations again from the past. Like I'm going to be revisited by ghosts of my past. It'll be very interesting to kind of see what potentially comes up with this retrograde. I do think this is going to be a very spicy retrograde. I think we all need to be very, very careful with, the information that we're sharing, making sure that it's true, fact checking our sources, be cautious of various updates, be cautious of, the weird spam calls and the messages that come through on our phone that's like, click this link. It feels like fraud in some sort of way. So just being cautious there, just being careful as we do for every single Mercury retrograde. But I do think that this one in particular is extra, extra spicy, especially because was very, very close to that Uranus opposition. And we also have Mars very close to it as well. So it just kind of already says like, let's fight about old stuff. Let's fight about stuff I don't know the entire truth about. Let's fight about stuff that just came out of my mouth because I just blurted it out. Mercury in Sagittarius is also very like so good at being philosophical and like being the storyteller and seeing like the big broad strokes of things. It's not concerned with the fine details. And something we know about Mercury retrogrades is that we do need to be careful about the fine details. So just keeping that in mind, because it's the sun's day, Sunday, we know that trying to engage in things that bring us like some sort of pleasure or play, watch a play. The sun is in Scorpio. It was like so dramatic. Watch a movie that is like all about like fall or winter, that has like that dramatic, engage in art, in play in ways that like make you feel psychologically connected. And also just try to rest. It's Sunday if you can. Of course, I know that we all live in capitalism, so I know that that's not necessarily possible for everybody. So again, we have that station direct. We do have a nice supportive aspect of the moon trine the sun. These are in water signs, 17 degrees. It's just a flowing energy. We can kind of maybe go forward with whatever, I think also like going forward with whatever that new moon intention was. This is a way to kind of push after the awareness of maybe the things we need to finish up or clean up or clear out. Whatever we've released, now we have the rest of it to kind of go through with that trine. Moon sesqui-square Mars and Mercury in the afternoon, 2:26 and then 7:30 p.m. I think that this is the danger zone for the day specifically. There could be lots of like maybe misunderstandings and opportunities for arguments that go absolutely nowhere. So just be very cautious of this day and just maybe try to stay in a more quiet space, a space in which you would not be super reactive, because you might have to revisit it later with Mercury retrogrades vibes. Moon square Chiron, 10:51 p.m., last aspect of the day. Sensitivity, hurt, right? This can be, really feeling hurt about wounds that you have. Wounds that you don't want to share with people, wanting to take some sort of action around your healing, but you don't really know where to begin. Feel the feelings. And I don't really think that we have any recourse but to feel the feelings with the moon in Cancer, getting closer to Jupiter anyways, and also with all of that water in the sky. We are now on Monday, November 10th. Monday is the moon's day. We have a kind of a vibe switch that happens today, because we start with the moon in Cancer and then it will go into impassioned, fun-loving, creative, dramatic, kind of all about me, creative identity seeking Leo. And that ingress is going to happen at 9:33 a.m. But before that, in the middle of the night, we get moon conjunct Jupiter. That's, it's almost like the feelings floweth over. They're big feelings. I would say let the cry out at that time. We get the moon trine Saturn at 1:38 a.m. Now Saturn is kind of stabilizing with that trine. That's what a trine from Saturn will do, is kind of stabilizes, becomes maybe calming, or creates a base for you to kind of sit on and go, oh, okay, I can breathe. So it's like cry the feelings and then kind of come back to center with that moon trine Saturn. Moon trine Neptune can have us feeling really intuitive and kind of wanting to space out and be a part of the dream. And it feels a bit psychic with especially at that 29 degrees, it was where this trine is going to happen. Like the psychic visions and the psychic feelings and the psychic hits could be really strong at this time, 8:53 a.m. We're going to get the moon sextile Uranus at 9:22 a.m. This could be like new hits, new needing to take on some sort of new habit or some sort of change. This could be some sort of surprising thing that kind of comes through that tells us something about like our sense of security, our sense of safety. You know, Uranus is very mixed bag. It works for people in very different ways. This could be kind of a spicy one though, because of the anoretic nature of this 29-degree retrograde Uranus here. Moon's going to enter passionate Leo at 9:33 a.m. Here's that moon right there. And right as it does that, just a few hours later, it is going to oppose Pluto, right? So this is a confrontation, emotional confrontation around power and control dynamics. You know, it could be, you know, the moon in Leo needs recognition. It needs recognition. And Pluto in Aquarius is like, we're all valid, we're all loved, we're all equal. And like the moon in Leo doesn't necessarily want to hear it in that moment, but it is a good awareness to have, right? This is the lesson of I'm special, but we're all special. That access really has to do with like creativity and community, the Leo and Aquarius axis. So, you know, this is definitely some sort of emotional confrontation. This is real big dramatic feelings, certainly. And we could end up feeling a bit alienated with that Aquarius situation happening here. So just, you know, be aware of that. We're going to get the moon trine Mars at 5:48 p.m. This is such a get up and go kind of aspect. It's like, I'm going to go and take that action. I'm going to go do this thing. You know, it feels impassioned for me and playful and like, I just want to get out of here kind of thing with that Mars in freedom loving Sag. And it's not that Leo doesn't love freedom, because it wants to do what it wants to do. It is a fixed sign, but it's really that fired up feeling. So I feel like feeling fired up with the fire trine. We're going to get the moon square Venus at 6:43 p.m. And this can feel really intense, maybe kind of overdoing it, a really dramatic square, because the two signs that really scream drama, Scorpio and Leo, are having a ball out there. So there could be some relationship drama that comes up at this time. 9:21 p.m. we have moon trine Mercury. This really gives us the ability to like communicate where we're at, how we're feeling, what we're thinking, the sense of how we're feeling and how we're thinking are in alignment, so that we can communicate probably all of these big feelings that we've been having. But also we just need to, maybe this is a revisiting of a conversation that we had inside of our relationship earlier, and now we're revisiting it because of the Mercury retrograde. So that's the last aspect of the day at 9:21 p.m. And maybe it's an invitation to have some sort of conversation with somebody about like your truth, and you're able to really fully articulate like where you're coming from. Now, it doesn't mean that it'll be received well. Make sure that people are listening. Mercury retrograde is also a good time to be like, do you understand what I'm saying? Instead of just hoping for the best. All right, last day of this forecast, we're going to talk about Tuesday, November 11th. Tuesday is Mars's day. Mars is in freedom fighting, justice wanting, truth searching Sagittarius, right? Mars in Sag also says like, I gotta get out of here, right? Sagittarius is really good for leaving. Like, I gotta go. I just gotta go. That's one of the things I love about my Sagittarius friends. They're like, I gotta leave this party. And then they just go. And I'm like, oh, okay. And they're also really impassioned about the things that they really want to do, which is really, really wonderful. Yeah, I love Sag energy. They're really fun. All right. So on this day, the big news of the day is we have Jupiter stationing retrograde at 25 degrees, 9 minutes of Cancer. So little notes that I have about that is that Jupiter is going to be retrograde until March 10th 2026 and is going to retrograde all the way back to 15 degrees, 50 minutes. So we need to kind of pay attention to what planets will be hit by Jupiter in its retrograde motion, and maybe think back to when it was interacting with these planets in a forward motion, because there's something like, oh, I need to go back and maybe do some more work on that, right? I need to maybe expand in a different way, or I need to inject a sense of like some philosophy here that like will help this aspect really take better shape or hold. And then also we need to know that it's going to hit twice more, right? It's going to hit retrograde if you have planets within this 25 to 15 range, and then it's going to go forward again. So we have two of the, I think, three hits. I'd have to check that for sure, but two of the three hits. We have two more hits of Jupiter to those planets in that range. So if you have cardinal planets in that range, you know, it could be some sort of action taking place, you know, some sort of push to take some sort of action somewhere. If you have some Earth planets, you know, that could be really nice and supportive, maybe needing to re-anchor yourself in some sort of way. But Jupiter is a benefic, right? And it is in the sign of its exaltation. So even though it's retrograde, which is a little bit of a sign of a debilitation, it's still doing pretty good. And so let's just hope that it does some good. When a planet is debilitated, though, it does have the ancients say that it could be a little bit of some corruption to it, right? So we might need to look out for like some over-the-topness, some extra over-the-topness that Jupiter wants to do, some overextending, some extravagance, some extra pompousness that could kind of come through. So just be cautious of that. We're going to get the moon sesquip square Neptune at 11:29 a.m. You know, this, I think this just feels like frustration, you know, frustration that we're maybe not able to go and do all of the things that we wanted to do around the visions and the dreams that we're holding, you know. The moon in Leo wants to be so creative. It needs to be creative. It needs to like expand in that solar energy sort of way. And like Neptune is at a critical degree in Pisces. It's really trying to finish up some things around faith and feeling and spirituality and compassion. And I'm not saying that moon in Leo can't be compassionate or spiritual in any sort of way, but I don't think it gets to really feel like it's getting everything done that it needs to in that moment. Then at 9:28 p.m., we are going to get the third quarter square from the moon to the sun. This is going to feel critical. The third quarter square is also known by astrologers as the crisis of consciousness. Why am I here? What am I doing? What can I achieve? I need to finish this thing. Sort of, there's this awareness of what we have not finished up yet, what we have not wrapped up yet, what we have not maybe taken action on and needing to take action on that thing. So we could not be feeling particularly wonderful on this day in particular. And that's the last aspect of the day. So reminding ourselves that we're still in this like very watery moment. We got some fire injected there for some passion. So we have a lot of emotions, a lot of passion, and not a lot of things that are anchoring us or holding us into a sense of stability, because the only earth sign that we have is being exhibited in an unstable planet, right? Because Uranus is instability. It is liberation. It shakes things up. And so just kind of try to go with the flow. And go with the flow. And even though we're probably feeling a bit out of sorts on this day and things are feeling topsy-turvy, know that there is always tomorrow to, start making the changes we want to do. So take in that information, that frustration, or that feeling like, okay, now I know what I need to do, write the list, and then we can get to it tomorrow. Hey, thank you for listening to today's astro weather with me. I'm Sydney. As a reminder, I'm always open to seeing both new and my beloved returning clients. My website is ddastrology.com, that is D as in dog, astrology.com, to check me out and just click the email buttons in order to schedule with me. If you're into a more conversational feel with your podcast and content, I have a podcast called BS Astrology with my fellow Mercurial Mommy Bender, and we put out episodes every Sunday for the week. Just search BS Astrology on YouTube or wherever you enjoy listening to your podcast, including Spotify, Audible, and more. Have a good day.